Pursuant to Internal Revenue Service guidance, be advised that any federal tax advice contained in this program is not intended to be used, and it cannot be used by any person or entity for the purpose of avoiding any tax penalties that may be imposed by the Internal Revenue Service or any other U.S. federal taxing authority or agency, or promoting, marketing, or recommending to another party any transaction or matter addressed in this show. The opinions expressed by the host and the guests are their own and may not be used as authoritative advice. Any use of this material without the written consent of the host is strictly prohibited.
You're listening to the IRS Radio Hour with your host, Attorney Stephen Leahy, on AM 560, The Answer. Tune in every week at 5 for an informative discussion about IRS obligations, credit card debt, mortgage default, collection activity, and how to resolve these legal issues using tax resolution, debt settlement, mortgage loan modification, foreclosure defense, and bankruptcy. Your host is Stephen Leahy, a Chicago attorney and the principal at Oakham Tax Resolution and the law office of Stephen A. Leahy, PC. Stephen is the author of Deal with Your IRS Problems Today. IRS and debt issues are serious, but there is help. There are resolutions. So get ready and take notes during the IRS Radio Hour. And now, here's your host, Attorney Stephen Leahy.
Hello, Chicago, and happy days are here again. There has been an election, if you didn't know, but
that means you're in the closet. Someone open the closet, let them out.
That's right. So welcome to the IRS Radio Hour on AM 560, The Answer. I am your host, Attorney Stephen Leahy. I want to remind our listeners that we do have a sponsor. Our sponsor is Oakham Tax Resolution and the law office of Stephen A. Leahy. And we help people dealing with IRS problems, audits, levies, liens, garnishments, collections, and payroll tax issues. We also help people with mortgage foreclosures, loan modifications, bankruptcy, and other debt-related issues. So if you have any of these problems, or if you know someone who does, have them give me a call at 312-664-6649. I want to introduce my co-host, Jim Leahy.
Welcome back, everybody. It's a great week. We had a good week behind us, and if it's Sunday at 5, it's the IRS Radio Hour. We welcome you all back. This is a show about people as helping people solve their financial problems, but as you noticed in the beginning, this is also a show about local issues. Steve and I are local guys. We were born here. Our families were born here. We're raising our families here. And it's an important thing to have a local attorney when you're going through these kind of issues. So this week we're going to... So,
Jim, this week I had a couple clients come in, and they were both from the west side of Chicago. One lives in Oak Park, and the other one, I think they're both from Oak Park. But one was also born at Loretto Hospital. That's where I was born.
I was born in Loretto Hospital.
Right.
That reminds me of that's a story I'll tell one day about being in the Philippines.
Oh, that was... I've heard that story, Jim.
I know. Well, you've heard most of my stories. I'm saving some for later, though.
I doubt that very much.
Well, so this has been a huge week, ladies and gentlemen, and as our regular listeners know, we've been going over a lot of focusing on these elections coming up. The one bad thing about the election is we'll never be able to play Harold again.
But today
so we're going to play it right now.
I was nuts to do it. I must have been blind or staggering. I would never appoint Pat Quinn to do anything.
Pat Quinn's not being appointed to do anything anymore anyway. All he's going to do is collect his pension.
I love it that he wouldn't concede. They got to count every vote. I represent everybody. They have to count every vote. But even if they all go for you, they're not. You can't win. I still want them counted.
The great thing is these Democrats are so good when they're on their own. Here's what Jim Carville said.
How distraught are you over what happened on Tuesday?
Oh, pretty bad. I mean, it was a real thumping. It was a mega defeat. Can't be spun any other way.
If science teaches us anything, it teaches us to accept our failures as well as our successes with quiet, dignity, and grace.
What did you do to me? What did you do to me? I don't want to live. I do not want to live.
Quiet, dignity, and grace.
Oh, Mama.
And then depression set in.
That was Harry Reid's office.
That's right. We had a microphone in Harry Reid's office. when the numbers started pouring in. And boy, they take these things well, don't they, Steve? This is unbelievable.
They're really good. You know what I like? I know that in the last midterm election, the president said we took what do you call it? A shellacking. A shellacking.
Yeah,
we took a shellacking. But this time he doesn't want to. He doesn't want to admit that they took anything. They were asking his spokesperson, "Did you guys lose?" He said, "Well, the Republicans won." Well, can you say that that you guys lost? No, we didn't. We didn't really lose.
And more Elias,
2/3 of the people never even voted, Jim.
That's right.
And I represent those 2/3.
More Elias had said, "So what you're saying is this is good for the Democrats?" No, he said, no. Finally, he had to say, "No, it wasn't good for anybody. It's really not good for anybody." Well, the problem is, and we don't want to be that partisan. This is this is what I kind of do for a living. I work in politics, but there's what we want to explain to people, and sometimes we try to go out of our way to explain why this matters to everybody and why we're focusing on some of these issues. The thing is, I don't really agree with Chris Matthews on a lot of things, but Chris Matthews for the last month has really been going nuts on this president. And in a nutshell, he kind of summed this up on what we've been talking about for the last couple of months and why there's been such a logjam in Washington.
Common ground. Well, damn it, you cannot run a government on common ground. He misses the main point of politics, which is to be a politician and to trade. You want this? Okay, you want to take care of the people here legally, have been here 20, 30 years. Here's what I want. No more illegal hiring. And that's all in the Senate bill. But he won't sell the compromise. There's something in this guy that just plays to his constituency and acts like there's no other world out there. And that's going to be a collision at the end of this year like you haven't seen. I do believe it will be waving a red flag in front of the bull. I think Mitch McConnell's headed for a fight with the president.
I have to agree. There's a big. How can you go any other way?
He's correct. The fact is, he does not recognize that there's an opposition out there, and that they were voted in as well. And the other thing is that
and that's why he brings up the 2/3.
Yeah, now he's
2/3 of the people didn't vote. I actually represent them, and add those to the people who voted against you. I actually won.
I've never heard a spin like that before in my life. And neither had those reporters that were in the room. They looked at me and said, "What is he saying?" And then he says, "I'm going to do this executive." He's been holding this executive order thing now. Well, we've been talking about this for 3-4 months. I'm going to use it. No, I'm not. I'm going to use it. No, I'm not. He keeps pulling it back. The fact is, the only way he thinks he's relevant or that he can get people behind him is to start a fight with it with the Republican Party.
Well, then that shows that the Republicans don't work with them and they're evil.
Well, the fact is, this is what the American people wanted. And I hate to say there's another radio talk show host who did point out there was really no agenda like the contract with America was.
No.
What this was a repudiation of the policies.
They kept their mouth shut and they stood to the side and let them.
Well, this is the one time.
I wish we could play. We should have played that clip of the president saying, my policies are on the.
That was. But the point being is, this whole thing started because What this was a repudiation of the policies that were happening. What they were hoping was they could blame the Republicans for doing nothing when everything that what did someone call the Senate was the Roach Motel. He said everything went in there. All the legislation goes in, nothing came out. It all dies there.
So it might be as many as 9 senators that the Republicans picked up as many as 9 if Louisiana goes. Republican.
Not only that,
and
we have to talk about our governor's race here in Illinois. The governor.
I also want to talk about Bob Dole.
That's right. Well, we took 3 congressional. The Republicans took 3 congressional seats. They did not. The funny thing is, with all this happening with the governor and 3 congressional seats, they didn't win 1 state house seat, not one, or state senate seat. They didn't win 1. Now, why is that? Maybe it's because there were 40, and I want you people to understand this, 40 state rep seats that were unopposed on the Democratic side inside the city of Chicago. The fact is that is an expensive market, the most expensive market. He was able to take that money that he would have to spend and he was able to put it out into the suburbs. This has to stop.
When you go unopposed, are you really representing the people, or are you representing the party that put you there? Because you're in. It's like appointing you.
Well, this is since he drew himself in. But you have to remember something. When he drew this map, he took away these 3 congressional seats that the Republicans had won, redrew the districts, and it took away the right after the elections. This was in 2011 or 2010.
The gerrymandering.
Yeah, with the gerrymandering. So what he was able to do was keep this, and you can see what a good map drawer he is. But it's not only that; it's the fact that he has all these unopposed seats. We have to get into the African American community and the Hispanic community and run candidates.
Well, a lot of these elections really went around on the economy because people are still having problems with the economy and they're having financial problems.
And if you have financial problems,
then you should give us a call. Go Open Tax Resolution and the law office of Stephen A. Leahy at 312.
What a segue.
Yes, 664-6649. Visit our website at chicagotaxteam.com.
Are we on the Facebook?
I just redid the website, Jim.
Oh, I can't believe that. We're on Facebook and on Twitter. Come on back. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Stephen Leahy, a local Chicago attorney. I believe that God has given each of us unique abilities, and we are to use those abilities to help others. I have helped hundreds of Chicagoans recover from financial disaster. And if the IRS is threatening you with liens, levies, or garnishments, or you have years of unfiled tax returns, I want to help you. Compliance is the first step to resolving your IRS problem, and compliance begins with your 2013 taxes. Are you ready? If you call now, make an appointment, and visit my office for a free confidential consultation, we will complete your personal 2013 tax return at no charge, even if you don't hire me to resolve your IRS problem. Remember, I'm a local Chicago attorney. Investigate me. Simply Google Stephen with a V, Leahy, Leahy, reviews to find out what the Better Business Bureau and others have said. Or call me at 312-664-6649. Again, that's 312-664-6649. Visit us on the web at chicagotaxteam.com. Call me today.
Welcome back to the IRS Radio Hour with attorney Stephen Leahy. Stephen has helped hundreds of Chicagoans recover from financial disaster, and he wants to help you and your family. There are resolutions, and you will hear about all those resolutions during today's informative discussion on the IRS Radio Hour on AM 560 The Answer. Now, here's your host, attorney Stephen Leahy.
Welcome back. I am your host, attorney Stephen Leahy, and this is the IRS Radio Hour on AM 560 The Answer.
Well, Steve, this is the informative part of the show.
The best part.
Well, the informative part, as he just said on the intro on the way in. This informative discussion is about Steve's blog. So I'm not using any. I'm not trying to make it.
Are you, what do they call it, the PBS?
Yes. Oh, that could be. Hello. Anyway, we're talking about a blog, and isn't that neat?
I think I say blog.
Blog. Let's see. I'm trying not to have an accent.
My kids always say it's blog, Dad.
Yeah.
Okay, so on the blog this week.
Blog, Dad.
On the blog this week.
And by the way, there is no Twitter, so don't go to try to join it. It's Twitter. Tweet me.
And you tweet. That's correct.
So tweet us.
Okay. So this segment we're going to talk about the Illinois Mortgage Foreclosure Law, and that's what we've been talking about.
It's almost like an ongoing saga.
That's correct. And there is a theme throughout the show, Jim, that we talk about financial matters. Oh. That's the IRS Radio Hour.
I was wondering why we were always talking about this IRS stuff.
And so this week we're talking about the Illinois Mortgage Foreclosure Law, and we've been talking about it for the last couple of weeks. First, we talked about mortgages and how the mortgages work, and then we talked about trying to protect, how to defend yourself in a mortgage foreclosure lawsuit. We talked about litigation. We talked about discovery. We talked about loan modifications, Chapter 13 bankruptcy. And now, last week, we talked about the ways to protect yourself. We started talking about the ways to protect yourself from a deficiency. And remember that Illinois is a recourse state, which means that if your mortgage company is successful in selling your home at an auction, that they can, and there's a deficiency, the difference between what they sell it for and what you owe them, if they don't get as much enough to pay off the loan, then that amount is defined as a deficiency. And in Illinois, the mortgage company can come after you for that deficiency. And I had a client this week that came in, a perfect example of what we're going to be talking about in just a minute, because he's tried. Last week we talked about deed in lieu of foreclosure and short sales. Now, these are generally, sometimes people can do this even before there's a foreclosure case filed against them. And so they work with the mortgage company and they come up with a buyer, and the mortgage company agrees, or the mortgage company will agree to just take the deed in lieu of the foreclosure. And instead of going to the foreclosure, filing a foreclosure case, they'll just get the deed and take over the property. This week, we're going to talk about if those don't work for you, then what else can you do to protect yourself from a deficiency? So this week, we're going to talk about 3 things, and these are all included in the Illinois Mortgage Foreclosure Law. So the first one is what they call a consent foreclosure. The next one we're going to talk about is a shortened redemption period. And then the third one we're going to talk about is in rem. And an in rem is Latin, means against the property. Instead of in persona, means against the person. So they can, those are the 2 different types of judgments that they can get.
Wait, we're speaking Latin.
This is a highbrow show, Jim.
And we're Catholic.
So we're going to talk about consent foreclosures. And I mentioned that I had a client that came in to see me, and he's been fighting with his mortgage company for almost 5 years to try to get rid of this property. He has a condo he owes over $250,000 for, and it's now worth $90,000. And since he bought the property, his family has grown, so he can't live in the condo. It's just too small. And so he's trying to unload the condo. We can't sell it without the mortgage company's permission because it's not worth what he owes, and he doesn't have $200,000 to hand over to the mortgage company. And they won't take a deed in lieu of foreclosure. He's tried and tried again, and they have a foreclosure action against him. So in this case, it's a very good. We're working very hard to get him what we call the consent foreclosure. And what this is, a consent foreclosure is when you agree to a judgment being placed against you. So instead of fighting it, instead of litigating, instead of doing discovery, instead of trying to drag it out, which is usually the strategy in order to get a loan modification, you agree. You say, you know what, I'll agree. You can get a judgment against me. And usually this is because there's other liens on the property. So if I have a second mortgage, for instance, in order to get that second mortgage off, they have to go through the foreclosure process, because otherwise the mortgage company would take possession of that property and they'd still have a lien from the second mortgage company. And so in order to get that lien off, they have to go through the foreclosure process, because it forecloses everybody who has an interest in the property, including the second mortgage or judicial liens or any other lien that might be placed on that property. So anyway, you agree, and then by law, they can't come after you for a deficiency by law.
Because you agreed to it?
Because if they get a consent foreclosure, it says the law says that the mortgage company waives any and all rights to a personal judgment for deficiency against the mortgagor, who's a homeowner, and against all persons liable for the indebtedness or other obligations secured by the mortgage. So if they agree to a consent foreclosure, then you walk away. There is no deficiency. They can't come after you. And the second type is what they call a shortened redemption period. And what this is if the property is worth 90% or less than the amount that you owe the mortgage, and they show that, then they can reduce the redemption period in the law. Now, remember, the redemption period was 3 months from the date of judgment. So if they get a judgment against me and we agree to reduce that the redemption period from 3 months to 60 days or 2 months, then by law, they can't come after me for a deficiency. And this is important stuff, because one of the great parts about this is they're not going to do a financial analysis for you. So maybe I'm making a fairly good living and I might have some assets, and that's why they won't do a deed in lieu of foreclosure, or that's why I don't want to give them hand over all my financial records, because I don't want the mortgage company to know that I have some assets, because they might want them. So this is one way that you can get out from under a deficiency and not reveal all of your assets and what your income is. And this could be very important. The third one I wanted to mention today is what they call an in rem judgment. And this gentleman that hired me, he says, I talked to a lot of lawyers, and most of them told me the same thing. Don't worry about it. They'll get an in rem judgment against you, and they'll never come after you. And I had to disagree, since I have a lot of clients who have had judgments against them, and they had someone coming after them. And that's why oftentimes people choose bankruptcy, because that's the last option. But you should try to do all of these. And we talked about these in order. That first, you want to do a deed in lieu of foreclosure. Second, you want to do a short sale. Third, you do a consent foreclosure. Fourth, you can do a shortened redemption, which is what we just talked about. The fifth thing you can do is an in rem judgment. But if none of those work, you have to know that, hey, if none of this works, I might have to file bankruptcy. So I think when people decide what they call, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, is a strategic default. When I could pay it, I just don't want, I can't keep struggling like this because this property's underwater and I can't make ends meet in my home, and I have to get rid of this property. Whenever you get into this, and the mortgage company will often tell you, I can't help you unless you're 90 days past due. And so a lot of people interpret that to mean, well, then I'll just fall 90 days past due, and then the mortgage company will help me. But then you fall 90 days past due, and they say, well, we didn't say we would help you. I just can't help you unless you're 90 days. So then, and then they get down this road, and then they try to do all these other things, and then they find out, I got to file bankruptcy, and they never wanted to. So I think you should always talk to somebody first. Go down this list. Find out how this all might work for you. And never strategic default unless you're willing to go the whole route, because otherwise you're going to find yourself in a lot of pain.
And it's important you find an attorney who
that's right,
opens everything up to you and lets you know.
So if you have property that you're underwater and you're considering a strategic default, or if you just can't pay, so it's not a strategic default, you're just defaulting, then you should call my office at 312-664-6649. You can visit our website at chicagotaxteam.com. You can go to the Facebook is IRS Radio Hour.
.com. No,
it's not
.com.
Hi, I'm Stephen Leahy, and for me, success comes when I help other people. That's why I became an attorney. I know the economy has taken a financial toll on many families and businesses, but I believe that they can recover from their financial problems if they just get the right help. I'm here in Chicago, and I know that if people improve their financial situation, they improve their lives, and I want to help. If the IRS is attacking you with liens, levies, or garnishments, if your mortgage company has threatened foreclosure, or collectors' calls are driving you mad, you need help. We listen to your financial situation, find out what's really going on, and develop a workable solution. Remember, I'm right here in Chicago, and your first visit is completely free and confidential. I will tell you on the spot what can be done and what it will cost. If you are looking for help, you've come to the right place. Call me, Stephen Leahy, at 312-664-6649. Again, that's 312-664-6649. Or visit us on the web at chicagotaxteam.com. Call me today.
You're listening to the IRS Radio Hour with attorney Stephen Leahy on AM 560, The Answer. Attorney Stephen Leahy brings his passion and expertise to your radio each and every week during the IRS Radio Hour. Tune in, take notes, and be educated. Learn your options resolving financial obstacles that face so many. And now, back to the IRS Radio Hour with your host, attorney Stephen Leahy.
Welcome back. I am your host, attorney Stephen Leahy, and this is the IRS Radio Hour on AM 560, The Answer.
And I am not your host, but I am the announcer, Jim Leahy.
Should I call you the announcer from now on?
Just call me Jim. Okay. We're good enough friends now. I think we know each other.
Sometimes I even call you Jimmy.
Sometimes. Well, no, let's not get too close.
Or Jimbo.
No, all right, that's going way too far. I'm not speaking anymore, ladies and gentlemen. No, this is my favorite part. So this is not the part I'm not going to speak on. This is the part of our show where we go to our ongoing saga.
As the IRS turns.
And this week we just have we have all this news about the IRS and this ongoing saga that we've been following. You know, the funny thing is I was trying to explain to somebody, yesterday. We started this because this was in the news the week we started the show. Little did we know that this would keep going, and now this is going to be going on for the next 2-3 years because we had a reporter ask a question to Mitch McConnell this week. We asked them, are you going to keep giving material to the IRS Radio Hour so that they can continue their ongoing saga? And he said,
oh, you can bet on that. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what that means.
That's right.
I don't know. We didn't ask him that.
Yeah,
but,
actually, they asked him, "Are you going to have? Are you going to start some investigations into the IRS?"
Yeah, you're going to continue.
You can bet on that. Yeah.
See, there he goes. What do you call me, a liar? I told you we had somebody there. I hate when he does that, ladies and gentlemen. So anyway, we found out
that's like Browner. You're a liar.
He's a billionaire, and they're all billionaires. And that's what billionaires do.
Billionaires lie.
Yeah, that's right. They reach in your pocket.
Are they going to call him the billionaire governor? Billionaire governor.
As soon as he does something they don't like.
But he was elected, Jim. They already did something they didn't like.
He's not taking a paycheck. I wonder if he'd give it over to us. Oh, yeah,
he could sponsor the IRS Radio Hour.
He could. Let's approach him with that.
It's a good idea. I'll plug him.
So anyway, on our ongoing saga this week, we found out the day before the election that Senator Jeanne Shaheen, who was in a very close race with Scott Brown, was actually interacting with the IRS and was helping plot the downfall of these 501c4s.
Like Dick Durbin won their elections.
Well, Dick Durbin, that's I
want to play another one because we're talking about we're getting more material and going to the Senate and what the Senate, the Republican Senate's going to do. And I think Ted Cruz had something to say about that.
That is one of the biggest differences we're going to see with the Republican majority is finally meaningful oversight of the Obama administration from the U.S. Senate. For 6 years, Harry Reid has been President Obama's most important protector, and he shut down the Senate. There's been essentially no oversight. I hope we begin serious, careful, systematic, sober hearings examining executive abuse, regulatory abuse, lawlessness, abuse of power, whether it is the IRS wrongfully targeting citizens, whether it is the debacle of Benghazi and 4 Americans who lost their lives and why more was not done to save them, or whether it is the lawlessness that has pervaded Obamacare as the president and the executive branch has tried to pick and choose which laws to follow. I hope we see serious Senate oversight on all of those fronts.
Amen, brother.
So you're going to have the Senate investigation, then you're going to have the House investigation. But before we run out of time on this segment, I want to talk about Lois Lerner's emails, because that's what a lot of this is about.
This is what this started. In May, when we started the show, they had just found out that she claimed a fifth. So that's the reason why we thought it was funny, and we brought this up.
And then they started finding. But so now the as you know, we talked about it before here that Judicial Watch has a lawsuit for Freedom of Information Act, and Judge Sully we call him. He's Sullivan. He has ordered the IRS to come up with some of these, some reasons why they haven't found it. And I'm just going to read this. As in the October federal court filing, the IRS does not deny that the government-wide backup system exists. Remember, they said that there was a backup system.
Yeah, that's right.
And acknowledges to the court that 760 other email servers have been discovered, but have not been searched.
So what does that mean in layman's terms, Steve? We didn't look. We were lying.
The IRS also refuses to disclose the names of the IRS officials who have information about the IRS scandal, citing unspecified threats. So we can't tell you who they are.
His name is Koskinen.
The IRS says it pulled documents about the scandal from various employees into a congressional database and that it has only searched this one database for missing records. Incredibly, the IRS has not searched any of the IRS's regular computer systems for any missing records.
I think that's against the law.
So they keep saying,
wherever we can, we follow the law.
Every time he can. That's right.
That's right. That was Mr. Koskinen there.
Right. So they said, well, we looked, but we didn't look everywhere. Everywhere we looked, they didn't have them. But we only looked where we knew they weren't going to be.
Right. They're not here. Okay, thanks. We want to tell you something, though, ladies and gentlemen. Now we're going to be able to make our own video of this IRS saga by the end of the time this is over.
Put them all together. So we're going to keep putting it all together. And remember, one of the reasons why we talk about the IRS here in this saga is because the IRS is a rogue agency, and they come after people, and they could be coming after you.
And if they are, what should I do?
Then you should give us a call at 312-664 6649. Visit the website at ChicagoTaxTeam.com.
Or visit us on Facebook and like us. Please like us.
That's right.
We'll see you on the other side.
Hi, I'm Stephen Leahy, a local Chicago attorney. I believe that God has given each of us unique abilities, and we are to use those abilities to help others. I have helped hundreds of Chicagoans recover from financial disaster. And if the IRS is threatening you with liens, levies, or garnishments, or you have years of unfiled tax returns, I want to help you. Compliance is the first step to resolving your IRS problem, and compliance begins with your 2013 taxes. Are you ready? If you call now, make an appointment, and visit my office for a free confidential consultation, we will complete your personal 2013 tax return at no charge, even if you don't hire me to resolve your IRS problem. Remember, I'm a local Chicago attorney. Investigate me. Simply Google Stephen with a V, Leahy, Leahy, reviews to find out what the Better Business Bureau and others have said. Or call me at 312-664-6649. Again, that's 312-664-6649. Visit us on the web at ChicagoTaxTeam.com. Call me today.
Welcome back to the IRS Radio Hour with attorney Stephen Leahy. Stephen has helped hundreds of Chicagoans recover from financial disaster, and he wants to help you and your family. There are resolutions, and you will hear about all those resolutions during today's informative discussion on the IRS Radio Hour on AM 560 The Answer. Now, here's your host, attorney Stephen Leahy.
Welcome back. I am your host, attorney Stephen Leahy, and this is the IRS Radio Hour on AM 560 The Answer.
So, Steve.
So I'm very serious now, Joe, because this is a serious part of the show.
Yes. We are talking to attorney Stephen Leahy, and we're going to read a question from our friend, Dr. Richard
So that's the name of the segment now, is Dr. Fader has a question.
Dr. Fader of Fort Wayne, Indiana, asked this question for you, Steve. He says, the IRS has slammed me with what I feel are outrageous penalties and fees. Is there a way to reduce them? Or, preferably, eliminate them altogether? Funny, you wouldn't think he'd have a West Side accent being from Indiana. But he does.
He can live in Indiana. A lot of people grew up in the West Side
and run away to Indiana.
Well, some are even going to Wisconsin now that they have a Republican governor up there who's run 3 times in the last 4 years and won.
And that's right. And my daughter Jennifer, I talked her into going up there. And excuse me, Dr. Fader, I'm going to cut into your question. She was walking by and I said, you should go vote. And she said, Dad, I'm not going to vote because you tell me to vote. And I said, don't you think that having to run 3 times for the same office in 4 years and having those guys run away and hide in Chicago and breaking their laws, don't you think that that's worth holding them to account? And she said yes.
And she voted.
And she voted. And
right. I saw the picture on her Facebook page.
Yeah.
So
God bless you, honey.
The answer to the question of Dr. Fader's question is sometimes. Okay, so this is always what people
ask. All right, thanks. Let's move on now.
So this is what almost everybody who comes to see me, because they're going to owe the IRS money. And a big portion of what they owe is going to be penalties and interest. And they always say, well, if I could just pay what I owe, I'd be okay with that. Now, the reason why the IRS has penalties and interest
so you pay what you owe.
Is that you pay on time. The compliance, right? We always talk on the show about compliance, and that's such a big part to the IRS. And so... And it's hard for me to tell my clients, but if it doesn't seem fair if I have to pay on time and then you don't pay, and then you don't pay any penalties and interest either. But the answer is that there are ways to what they call abate the penalties. And when you abate the penalties, you're abating some of the interest because the interest...
Is it sometimes the fact that the IRS does your taxes or claims something on you and then charges you more, and then
that's
now
true.
You're
That's
fighting.
what we call them. We talked about that. Those are called SFRs, or substitute for returns. But that's kind of a different issue, because what you do there is you redo your tax returns and you do them properly, and that might dramatically reduce what you owe.
I got a feeling Dr. Fader will be asking you a question about.
I think he did a couple of weeks ago, But anyway, so that's a different issue. Right here is, yes, I owe that much. I owe what the IRS says I owe, but now they hit me with penalties and interest, and do I have to pay the penalties and interest? And again, oftentimes the answer is yes, but sometimes no. There's a there's a process that the IRS has. It came in the 1998, 1996 laws when they changed.
When the Republicans took control of the House for the first time.
That's right, called abatement. And they allow you to abate those penalties. And again, if I reduce what I owe the IRS, then it's going to reduce the interest that I'm going to pay. But I'm going to pay interest on whatever I owe the IRS. Now, the first one, there's a number of ways that you can, or reasons why the IRS will agree to abate a penalty. The first one is the first time. So if I've always paid my taxes on time for the last 5 years, I've filed on time, I paid on time, then I can ask for a first-time abatement. And the first-time abatements, you say, I've always done it. I've made a mistake this time. Please reduce the penalties, and they will they'll take them out.
Please.
That's right. You got to say please, otherwise they won't do it.
But and then they want your first dog.
But generally, the first time, you're going to get a penalty abatement. You have to ask. They're not going to give it to you without asking, and you have to put it on the right forms, and you have to ask it properly. But if you ask, then they usually will abate for a first time. Again, if I've always filed on time, always paid on time. But then there's a list of reasonable causes. So if I could show them, and I always tell people, usually if you haven't filed for some time, there's usually a reasonable cause. Something happened that made you, maybe
it's not my fault.
Well, a lot of times it isn't, because maybe they got sick. Maybe they were divorced. Maybe their parents passed away and they went into a depression. So, and this happens a lot. And so what I usually ask my clients to do is, I need a narrative. Tell me why. What was going on in your life at that time and that made you miss filing? Why didn't you file? And using that narrative, then we can go through a lot of different what they call reasonable cause. So maybe if I made a mistake. Even if I made a mistake, sometimes they'll abate the penalties. If it's ignorance of the law, if there was a death or serious unavoidable absence, inability to obtain records, inability to obtain tax forms. So sometimes I can't get the records, and that's a reasonable cause. So there's a list of reasonable causes. Again, when we do these abatements, what we do is we go through all of them, and we try to make your situation fit. So one of these will work. Now, it's a lot like a lot of these other things I talk about, is that you usually have to appeal. You're going to be denied the first time, and then you have to appeal it.
Please.
And then you have to say pretty please. That's right. So first time you say please, second time you say pretty please. But that's the appeal. And if you're going to get it, you're probably going to get it on the appeal. So that's how abatement works. But again, at least you have a way out. There is a way out, but you have to ask.
Well, and how would they know what to ask?
And you have to ask. You have to get the right people to ask for you, and that would be Open Tax Resolution and the law office of Stephen A. Leahy.
Aren't they the ones who sponsor this show?
That is the sponsor of this show. 312-664-6649. Visit our website at ChicagoTaxTeam.com.
Like us on Facebook and Twitter us, whatever that is. See you on the other side.
Tweet.
Hi, I'm Stephen Leahy, and for me, success comes when I help other people. That's why I became an attorney. I know the economy has taken a financial toll on many families and businesses, but I believe that they can recover from their financial problems if they just get the right help. I'm here in Chicago, and I know that if people improve their financial situation, they improve their lives, and I want to help. If the IRS is attacking you with liens, levies, or garnishments, if your mortgage company has threatened foreclosure, or collectors' calls are driving you mad, you need help. We listen to your financial situation, find out what's really going on, and develop a workable solution. Remember, I'm right here in Chicago, and your first visit is completely free and confidential. I will tell you on the spot what can be done and what it will cost. If you are looking for help, you've come to the right place. Call me, Stephen Leahy, at 312-664-6649. Again, that's 312-664-6649. Or visit us on the web at ChicagoTaxTeam.com. Call me today.
You're listening to the IRS Radio Hour with attorney Stephen Leahy on AM 560, The Answer. Attorney Stephen Leahy brings his passion and expertise to your radio each and every week during the IRS Radio Hour. Tune in, take notes, and be educated to learn your options resolving financial obstacles that face so many. And now, back to the IRS Radio Hour with your host, attorney Stephen Leahy.
We're back. We're back. And I am your host, attorney Stephen Leahy, and this is the IRS Radio Hour on AM 560, The Answer.
Well, Steve, we're rounding up on the end of the show, and boy, these things fly by.
They do.
And
I had a lot more to say about abatement, but we'll do that another time.
That's another question for Dr. Fay.
I want to also mention to people that, to our listeners,
yes.
that our...
those are the only ones who are going to hear it.
That's true. Oh, no, because we have the video, and that's what I wanted to talk about.
Our watchers.
Our watchers. See, we have watchers and listeners. And I've gotten much better at recording, and the videos are much better now than they used to be. So I invite you to go to our new website. It looks very similar, but it's much better. It works much better. It's scalable now, Jim. So no matter what size, screen you have, it fits on the screen very well. That's the new thing you got to have, Jim. 60% of people are looking at mobile phones now and searching. So
all my children are. I have a TV on. Everybody's watching their phone.
I know everybody's got.
I don't get that.
So, but I wanted to mention that we went to the celebration for Bob Dole.
Yes, we did.
The 10th Congressional District
at Austin's. We had some.
It was a lot of fun. Brought the kids.
I did a little
Ran
bit.
into David Hochberg,
who is a fellow
the Townstone Financial
answer.
He's a radio host. Radio host,
and
he's got a very successful show here on AM 560. The Answer. He probably doesn't say it as well as I do, though.
No, and me, I don't bring any expertise to anything. I just sit there. That bothers me in the beginning. There,
when I say that to him, he disagrees.
No, it's not. Yeah, I kind of feel left out. I got to figure something on the intro.
So anyway, so that was great.
Where's Jim's picture on the Twitter?
I did put your picture on it, but it's right behind the logo. Your face. I'm not really kidding. That's his face. Oh. So anyway, it really looks good behind the logo.
That's right.
But it brought my sons, both my sons and one of Jim's daughters, to the event
celebration.
My son wore a suit. He's 15. He wore a suit. I told him, wear a suit. You'll be taken serious. And then he was interviewed.
Yeah.
So I told him, wear the suit. You get interviewed. And then he got interviewed. So hey, next time I know what he's going to wear.
One day we'll tell a story. Steve and I were working. We actually worked for Eddie Verdoliak.
One day. You're going to say it today.
Well, we worked for Eddie Verdoliak, and one day I'll tell you the story. And we learned something very.
I actually learned a lot from Eddie Verdoliak.
Yes,
he was a very good.
This is when he was running against Harold Washington. And anyway, we'll tell the story another day.
So tonight is the Bears game.
Yes, it is. The Chipmunks. We're not going to say that. We're on your side.
They didn't lose last week, so I'm not calling them the Chipmunks.
No, that's right. But everybody who's on their way over to a party right now when we finish,
which would be us.
Yeah. Oh well, that's right. Well, I think we're already at the party because we're already watching the Bears.
Okay.
So we'll turn off our phones and watch the Bears and hope that the Bears can come through. Now, I want to say one thing. If the Bears don't come through, you got a lot of competition here, Mr. Tressman, because we're watching the Blackhawks, who seem to be winning all the time, and the Bulls.
The Bulls
have also been winning a lot. So let me tell you something. You better come true.
Didn't they beat Milwaukee the other night?
They just beat Milwaukee. You're totally correct.
So if and I say this,
and then,
if
or but
that's a big but.
J-Lo. Sorry, I couldn't.
Then you always say Lonnie Anderson too.
No, well, I bring up Lonnie Anderson for John. Anyway, what we're hoping to see is victories all around this weekend. We
like the Republican victory.
That's right. Let's bring it home. Let's bring it home for the Bears, and let's hope that they come home and have their heads held high instead of being pushed to the ground.
So next week at 5 o'clock.
Where will
Sunday,
you be? Of course,
you got to be right here at
the
IRS Radio Hour on AM 560 The Answer with Jim and me, because we're going to be here, and so you should be here too.
Well, not on Sunday. We're here on Friday, but we won't tell you that anyway.
You just told them.
Oh, that's right. Okay, well, you know what, ladies and gentlemen, we want you to follow us on Facebook and. Wait, is it? What is it?
It's
like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter.
See you next week.
See you next week.